This week we are continuing our fluency sessions for spring term. The number sentence 11 times 12. Give the answer first. Now be creative as you can, thinking about how else you can write this number sentence to have the same calculation. Think about multiplication, think about using the inverse for division, and think about these maths words on the side. If you would need to explain it to me, I might ask you at the end of the day. Think about how you can use the decimal. So change it to 0.11. What will happen to the answer at the end? When you're ready, go to the next slide. Looking at this fraction number sentence, you need to convert one of these so that I have two fractions with the same denominator. Have a think about which one you should convert. The fraction you should look at converting is 3/4, so it would be in the eighths. So now think about how you can make 3/4 into eighths. Remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator as well. Have a think. You need to convert 3/4 to eighths by timesing 4 by 2 to get 8, and 3 times 2 to get 6, so it would be 6/8. Then you would add 1/8 to 6/8, which would be 7/8. Thinking about your answer, is it worth more or less than 1 whole? It is less than 1 whole. Now think about, it is 7/8. What do you need to do to make it into 1 whole? You would have to add 1/8 to 7/8, which would be 1 whole. Looking at the next. As per last week, one of these statements is correct, and there are 2 which are incorrect. Remember, if you multiply a number, you have to move the digits to the left, and if you divide, you have to move it to the right. So have a look to see if you can spot the errors and why there are errors, and perhaps you can write the number sentence which would make it correct for those 2 which are incorrect. Pause the video and have a go. Which is correct is 4.8 divided by 100. You have decreased the number by moving it 2 digits to the right. The reason why you know it's moving 2 is because it's divided by 100. We've got 2 zeros there. It's always a good way of looking at it. So this is the correct statement. The incorrect are the other 2. 4.8 times 10, you would have to move it 1 place, because you know there's 1 0 to the left, and then it should be a 0 point. Sorry, not 0 point, it should be 48, and the answer here is 480. 480. Then if you look at 480 times 100, you would have had to move it 2 places to the left, which would be 48,000. There should be 3 zeros. Why you know that? You've got 1, 2 zeros here and another 0 here. It's a good way of remembering it. But you know you've got to move it 2 places because you've got times 100 there. Can you write them correctly? Have a go at 4.8 times 10 and 480 times 100, writing the correct number sentence to achieve those answers. And we can go through this at the end of the day. When you're ready, go to the next slide. Think about how you'd approach this calculation. 562 divided by 4. What base facts could you use to help you? Have a think. Perhaps you thought of dividing it by 2 and then doubling it. Or you went straight into 562 divided by 4, which would be 14 remainder 2. Now think about 14 remainder 2. How else can you write that remainder? You could have written it as a fraction, which would be 2 over 4, simplifying it to a half. And you could also write the half as a decimal, 0.5. So it would be 14.5. When you're ready, go to the next slide. Looking at all 3 clocks, they should say the same time. The missing clock is the 24-hour digital time. What should it read? Have a think. Pause the video. Be 20.50. You don't have to write PM because 20 will indicate it is in the 24-hour clock. The analog clock is showing 10 to 9. When you're ready, go on to the next slide. Having a look at the Roman numerals. Look what the value of the Roman numeral is shown. And perhaps you can have a go at what would the Roman numeral be for 1 less than this number. Have a go and we will go over the answers at the end of the day. Pause the video. Look at the time. We know X represents 10, C represents 100, the V represents 5, and 1 represents, looks like I represents 1. So 10 less than 100 is 90, and V and 1 we know is 6. 5 plus 1 is 6, one way of remembering it. So it should be 96. So have a think about how you would write it for 1 less than this number. And as I said, we can go through at the end of the day. Don't worry, with all these fluency, we will continue doing more of them with different numbers so that you are confident with it before we move on.